Okay, so concrete pour is done. Guys already went home. I think the first truck got here at about 11. And I don't know what time it is now, maybe 6. But they were done about maybe an hour ago. It was about a 6-hour day. But it's the heat index here is 113, 115. I mean, it's 100 and something then with the heat index. I mean, it's just nasty. I mean, we do get some shade though. We get some shade in the morning, and then the lot's covered with sunlight, and then you roast and dye for a few hours, and then as the sun moves, then we get shade over on this side. But it's still, I mean, just standing outside, you just get soaked. Anyway, yeah, so everything went fine. I calculated originally 21 and a half yards, and it actually came out to be 22. Well, we ordered 22 and a half. We didn't want to cut it too tight, but the truck left with some in it, so I'm going to say the kicker, which is the kicker is your last truck. It's not a full truck, that's called the kicker. So there's 2 full trucks at 10 yards each. The full truck is 10 yards. And then you've got there's always a kicker, for example. I mean, you might order 1 truck and then have a kicker, but whatever, so that's called a kicker. Anyway, yeah, so this is it. All the bolts are in. We had kind of a rush, and the sun was hitting this direct, and they didn't want to, this is the garage slab, and we didn't want to lose it, because in this kind of heat, I mean, you can lose it. I mean, well, you can't finish it. I mean, you basically have to tear it out. So we poured this out, and then including the driveway. Well, the driveway's broomed, but you can still lose the driveway. And the sidewalk and a little bit of the foundation had got done with the kicker. Anyway, yeah, so this is the second truck. And by the time I turned around, I mean, it didn't seem like it was that long after the truck left. I went to set the bolts, and it was too hard to set the bolts. I mean, I got like 2 in, and I was like pounding them in, and I'm like, just forget it. Because when I frame, I don't like the bolts in, because I use wall jacks and lift the walls up by myself. I put the plywood on, the OSB and the overhangs and everything, right? So for me to be able to lift them up and get them on top of the bolts, and slide down and on top of the bolts is really hard. So I stand them up on the bare concrete, and then I drill and use wedge anchors. So I'll use a 1/2 inch by 5.5 inch wedge anchor like every 3 feet. And that's what the framers can do. I'm not framing this one because there's not enough time. So it's not a real big deal. So like I said, we started there, and I was taking a hammer, like, this is just going to make a big mess. And probably even by the time I get around over here, it would be way too hard. I was shocked how fast it was setting up. So we didn't get the bolts and the J bolts, but not a big deal, because the framers don't care. These guys here, they don't frame and put the plywood on. I don't know why. I tell them to, but they don't. I tell them it's faster and easier. And we only use 2x4 walls here. It's not like some parts of the country where they use 2x6 and they're heavier. And then also they're kiln dried. On the West Coast, they use 2x6 and they're not kiln dried. They're green. Like when you buy pressure treated lumber, how wet and heavy it is. Well, that's how all their framing lumber is on the West Coast. So then you can understand maybe they don't want to put the plywood on. Well, here they don't. So for them to lift the walls up and set them on top of the bolts would be no big deal. But anyway, they're going to have to do the wedge anchors. So anyway, so it's all done. I was just kind of going around, and I go around with a shovel. The concrete guys were doing it too, but we missed a few spots. I've got like this kind of a shovel. It's like a 4-inch shovel. And all this concrete here, it doesn't look like much. This is the time to take care of it. So I go around the whole foundation, inside and out, and I break all this stuff away, push it away, and then I break it up. And see, this is getting really hard. This is the last piece. I just did it to show you what I was doing. I can still break it up though, and I break it up into small pieces. So so it'll end up like this or this. And the reason I do that is it's a lot easier to handle now, to deal with now when it's a little bit green, because you can break it up into small pieces, and then when your grading guy comes, it just gets lost in the grading when you come for your finished grading, instead of having to deal with these big chunks and you gotta get rid of them, put them in the dumpster, or whatever. So I just break them up into small pieces. you know, go like all of this. See, it's easy to break right now. You know, it's kind of hard, but it'll still break with a shovel. So I was going around doing that for, I don't know, maybe half an hour. Like I said, they had done some. Also makes it easier too when you go to take your forms off. There's no concrete in the way, so it makes it a little easier. They're going to come tomorrow and pull the forms off because they just want to get home. They live about an hour and a half from here. You know, this is kind of out far, so most of the subs don't live around here. Some guys come all the way from Houston. That's a long haul. These guys live in between here and Houston, but they like to get home. You know, they leave. They got to the place this morning to pick up the buggy, because part of the deal is they pick up the concrete buggy that I rented, but they pick it up and they drop it off. And the place closes at 5, so they didn't make it today because they needed to stay here to get this finished. They couldn't afford to have a guy go and take it back because the place is less than a half an hour from here, a rental place. So anyway, so they still take it back in the morning. But I mean, the rental place opens at 7:30, and they were there at 7:30 waiting. Even though the first truck wasn't coming between 10 and 11, they had some other things that they had to do. There's a few corrections that they had to make that I had told them about. I'll spray like with orange. I'll take a can of orange spray paint and spray wherever, you know, so they can find the corrections. And then there's a few other things they had to do. So they had stuff to do anyway. What I'm saying is their day, and then they leave the house at 6. So they have a long day, so they went home already. I mean, you could pull the forms right now, but I just, you know, then it's brutal heat, and a couple of the guys are older. I mean, they're around my age. I mean, I'm 62, so you know, I mean, I was getting hammered today in the heat. Anyway, yeah, so they'll come tomorrow, wreck the forms, and then I reuse, like, these will be all the ones that didn't get cut that are still 16 foot, because I told them to leave as many 16 foot as you could, 2x8s. They'll become roof joists. I always do that. And then I even reuse the stakes. I mean, these stakes here, some of these gray ones, 1x4s have been, you know, they've done 3, 4, 5 houses. You know, eventually they'll break apart, but, and then there's always some newer ones. So they'll stack all the stakes up, pull the nails out of the wood, stack it up, and then the stuff that's going to stay here for the framers. Even these 2x6s can be used. They can be used for headers. They'll stack all that stuff up. The framers will reuse. And then all the stakes and stuff, I just take them home. I throw them back in my truck, take them home. You know, it's not a lot of money, but it adds up at the end of your life. So I pay for materials. So I just take the stakes home. It takes an hour to take them home, dump them out of the truck, throw them in the yard. And then the next house, I go to the next house. For example, I mean, it's you know, I mean, maybe they cost, I don't know, 30, 40 cents a piece. You know, now that lumber came back down in price. But still, you know, there's $150 worth of lumber probably cut up, or maybe even more, $200 worth of lumber cut up for stakes. So anyway, that's what I do, but it's just another way to save money. If you save $200 a house and you build 5 houses a year, you save $1,000, you know, something like that. Anyway, or 10 houses a year, whatever you build. But that's it. I'm gonna go home because I've just been out in this heat all day. It's just like I got a headache. So that's it. Slab is power troweled, broom finish on the drive and the walks, and then I have them picture frame it, which is when you take the edge here and go around, call that picture framing, and follow the 1x4s. Yeah, so that's all done. Light broom finish. And that's about it. All right. I was going to say back to work like I usually do, but I'm going home now. Oh, check out my channel for other videos. You can learn how to build a house, all different aspects. All the tips and tricks, all the stuff I've learned over the last 40, 50 years. I don't know how long I've been doing this. I don't know, since the 70s, early 70s. Anyway, all right.